I want to talk with you about vision and the power of commitment. See, my wife Deborah and I, we've always had a dream and a vision to travel abroad. Now, we do it in a lot different way than most folks do. What we do is we love to go to developing countries, third world countries, where we can have an impact on people's lives. Well, about 3 years ago, we were invited to be speakers at a leadership conference in Uganda, Africa. We talked with each other and we made the decision that we were indeed going to go on that trip. Now, because it was a third world country, they didn't have the financing to make this happen. So we knew that we would have to raise all of our own money to make that happen. Well, we immediately went to work. We began to raise funds, talk to people. But the problem was that after months and months of effort, we hadn't made hardly any progress. In fact, we had only raised $1,000 of the $5,000 that we needed for that trip. And worse yet, we were only 7 days away from getting on that airlines. We hadn't even booked the airplane. We hadn't even purchased the tickets. And yet 7 days later, we were supposed to be there. Now, I don't know how you would feel about this, but we were devastated. In fact, we were embarrassed to go back to our friends and family and say, yes, guess what, folks? We've been talking this up to you, and now we're at the point where we're going to have to cancel. But our biggest concern was, what were we going to tell our friends in Uganda, Africa? Certainly, they had gone to much expense and a lot of effort to make this conference happen. Well, we didn't know where to turn, and we certainly needed somebody to talk with. So we went to a woman we know here in the Denver area, and she's from Kenya and kind of knows the mindset. And we asked her, do you think these folks are going to be really devastated? Are they going to be let down? Do you think there's any options? And so I can remember distinctly her words. They still ring true in my own mind. She said, Scott, don't quit. Don't ever give up. You are going on that trip to Africa. Wow. Suddenly, my wife and I, we looked at each other. We remembered the words that we had often spoke, and it was these words: I would rather be a wet water walker than a dry boat sitter. In other words, it's better to fail in trying than to never try at all. The problem was that we were afraid that we were going to get wet. Wet! We were going to get soaked. Here we were, 7 days away, needing to raise $4,000. Well, that night we sat together and we talked, and we reaffirmed that no matter what, we were going to make that trip. We didn't know how it's going to happen, but we said we're going to make that happen. Well, the next morning, something extraordinary happened. It seemed like money began to flow in from everywhere. The phone rings. Hello? Yes. My wife and I have been talking about helping you guys on your trip to Africa, and we've decided to donate $100. Wow. It wasn't just that phone call, it was many phone calls. Suddenly, my online business took a spike in sales. A website that we had set up to accept donations, people began to give from all parts of the world, people we had never met before, places like Europe, New Zealand, the Caribbean. Money, it seemed like, was flowing and falling down from heaven. And the exciting thing is that within 24 hours, we purchased those airline tickets and paid for them in full. And 6 days later, we were standing in the airport, bags packed, ready to go on our way to London, Kenya, and Uganda. What an experience it was. We stood there on the shorelines of the river Euphrates. We experienced Africa in every way possible. And we saw what it was like to sell out to a vision, to commit fully to a direction in a life and the results that would come out of it. Let me talk to you about 3 steps, 3 lessons that we learned from this little experience. Number 1, if you want to be a wet water walker, it's not easy. It's never easy. It was never meant to be easy. And that's why the path of the many are in mediocrity. When you make a decision to move forward and make a commitment in your life where it concerns a direction, a dream, a vision, a passion, it's not necessarily going to be easy. And yes, there are times you will get wet. But remember, it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. All right, what was the second lesson? The second lesson is in order to walk on water, you've got to make that commitment. In other words, you've got to cut off the fallback position, your plan B, and you've got to say that no matter what, I'm going to make this work. Now, that could mean a relationship. It could mean a dream, a desire, a passion to move forward in your life towards some goal, for instance, a business. It could mean a purchase of a house, a car, whatever it is, you've got to commit that no matter what, this is the direction I'm going to go. Thirdly, walking in water takes faith. Absolutely. When you're standing on the edge of life, whether it's a cliff or whether it's the edge of a boat where you're about to step out on the water, you've got to know that you know that you know that as you step out, there will be a bridge that will appear. And it's interesting how that happens in life, isn't it? That has happened many times in our life. When we begin to step out, not knowing what the end result was, guess what? The bridge appeared. You see, it was this level of commitment that created a transitional moment in our life that told us that no matter what, when we were going to make that decision to go to Africa, that we were going to make it happen. We didn't know how it was going to happen, but the answer appeared. You see, we discovered that commitment removes crutches and excuses from the dreams and visions that we have in our lives. And we did go to Africa, and we had a huge impact on many people's lives. We made connections, created new relationships. In fact, we made one connection that put me on the radio in Kenya for almost a year. So you never know what will happen. We met a couple who were running an orphanage, and we later had gotten involved through the years, and we give to plant an entire field. Their orphans get in the field, they work it, and they sell those as crops in the market, and that finances the entire year of running that orphanage. Incredible. Our world has expanded as a result of this decision beyond our imagination, and we learned what it was like to have vision and experience the results of having the power of commitment behind us. Let me encourage you tonight or today, wherever you're at, to make the decision to commit to a direction and watch what happens.